is flattery? Somebody give me a definition of what they think flattery is.
Trying to butter somebody up, just trying to speak everything good that you can think of and be trying to impress them.
Yeah.
So they'll be impressed with you is basically
Okay.
what, that, to me, that's what it boils down to.
Okay, on page 134 there, when it first starts, she tells us in the second paragraph here, she describes it pretty good for you. The disease to please causes you to tell your mother-in-law how wonderful her lima bean casserole is, when in reality, all you want to do is spit it into your napkin when no one is looking. Has that happened to you girls? I've been there a few times. But the thing about it is, her mother-in-law probably didn't even ask her. I mean, you don't have to go raving on about, I mean, if they don't even ask you, and even at that, you know, you can find, you might, I mean, if somebody bluntly just comes out and asks you, did you like that? And you know, you don't have to say it's the worst thing in the world I've tasted. You know, you can say, she talks about tempering our words in love. You know, you might could say something about, well, you know, that's never really been one of my favorite dishes, but you really make a marvelous meringue pie. I mean, you know, we can think of something that they've done, and just so that we don't wound them and offend them, but we can't lie and say, yeah, it's the best thing. Next time they come to your house, they're gonna bring it to you. You're gonna have to eat it. You don't wanna have to do that, you know? And then she goes on to give a scenario about this girl who went out. She was one of the judges on some girls coming out for a cheer team, and this one little girl really she was not coordinated. She could not get it together, you know. And but her mother asked her if she thought this girl, and so she said, because I wanted to be her friend and I wanted her to think good of me, I just kind of left the impression that her kid was good and that she probably could. And so this teenager, and of course, you know, teenagers are emotional. They have everything's a tragedy, you know. And so she tries out, and so she goes up against all these girls who've had gymnastics and training and all this stuff, you know. And of course, you know, she doesn't make it very far, and the girl's devastated, and she cries, and she's embarrassed because she's, you know, there's certain things you just can't do, you know. That's just the way it is. There's just certain talents we don't have, certain skills we don't have, and there's no use in us trying to do something we can't do. And she said, it would have been much better if I had just told her the truth and said, you know, she's going up against a lot of girls that have a lot of training, and it might be better if she put her energy into some other field, something that she could be successful in. And if she knew the girl well enough to tell her what skills that she did have, say, you know what, she might do much better at some, you know, I've seen some of her drawings, and I think she's a really good artist. Maybe she want to put her talent, you know, in that direction. We can tell the truth in love. We don't have to be mean and hateful and ornery about it, you know. Somebody comes up to you with this brand new baby that they think's the prettiest thing in the world, and they say, ain't he the prettiest thing you ever saw? And you really think he's kind of homely, you know, and you're, so how do I get out of this one? You know, and you can say, you know, you can, listen, you can always find something. I mean, you can say, oh my, he sure does have a head of hair there, or ain't them the prettiest little hands you ever saw? I mean, you know, we don't have to be mean, we don't have to be lying, but we don't have to say, oh yes, honey, I think that's the most beautiful kid in the world. I mean, you know, we can tell the truth. We can do it in a good way that we don't, you know, hurt anybody. But we, you know, we do have to be careful. And on page 139, she says, face-to-face flattery. Flattery really is insincere praise, like Rosemary told us. It's just when you're putting somebody up and saying that it's not, you're not sincere about it. You know, somebody gets up to say, and I, you know, bless their hearts, somebody ought to tell them. Be kind enough to tell them. Somebody gets up to sing and they can't carry a tune in a bucket. I mean, come on. And everybody just, oh, isn't that wonderful, and just pray. And I know a pastor years and years back, and his daughter, and they would promote her and put her, and she could not sing. I mean, she just couldn't. But because they respected him and admired him, and heard his feel, oh, they bragged about how good she could sing. And every time she had to get up and sing, and it completely killed the service. I mean, God gives us talent. God gives people talents to edify the church and build the church. He doesn't give people singing ability just so they can be good singers. He does it to edify the church. And singing and worship sets the stage for us to hear the word. When we've been blessed and we're ready, and the preacher's ready to preach the word, man, we can just eat it up, But when somebody gets up and puts a damper on, and then it's hard for us to get in, it's hard for us to support the pastor and get in with the message, So, let's be careful about insincere flattery. It actually just comes down to plain out lying. On page 140, first chapter, first paragraph there, she says, along with my many other misguided gifts of gab, I am very skillful at yielding the clever tool of flattery. It's been said that gossip is saying something behind someone's back that you would never dare to say to their face. However, flattery is the opposite. It is saying something to someone's face that you would never say behind their back. Usually because you don't really believe it's true. If I don't think somebody can sing wonderful, I'm not going to get behind their back and say, so-and-so, isn't she a wonderful singer? I'm not going to do that if I don't think, But if I get them to their face and I say, oh man, you did such a wonderful job, flattery is perhaps the purest form of people pleasing. We flatter people. We try to because we want their approval. We want them to think good of us, and so we try to flatter them and butter them up real good. Okay, and she goes on page 142, and she tells us the story about Herod, and King Herod and John the Baptist. And John was a truth teller. He told the truth. He told Herod it was illegal, unlawful, immoral for him to have his brother's wife. He said, listen, that is not. And so he, of course, her name was Herodias, and of course that didn't sit too well with her. She wasn't too happy about it. And here's what we have to be careful about uttering things. So her daughter danced before King Herod when he was at this big banquet, and he enjoyed it, and so he said, I'll give you anything you want. Well, we ought to be careful, about saying what we can, what we will do. Sometimes we can't perform what we brag we can do, so we need to be really careful. Anyway, Herod did not want to kill John the Baptist because he thought he was a prophet. And he knew that the people would not be happy with him, and he's a people pleaser. He wanted to, please the people, so he really did not want. But since he had asked her in front of all these people, and he made his big boast here, and she had been instructed of her mother, to ask for John the Baptist's head. And that's what he gave her. And he had to give it because he didn't have to. He could have found a way to get out of it real, probably not without looking bad. Well, I don't know. Think about it. People probably would have thought better of him for having not kept his promise than to keep it. I mean, for him to kill John the Baptist, that probably would have been better if he hadn't tried to please people. And so, because of the oath and because of he made it in front of all these guests, he had to go ahead and do it. And then, just to please other people sometimes, oh my goodness, how guilty we are. Okay, and on page 144, she talks about beware of making promises in order to impress someone. Oh, how many times have we overbooked ourselves because we want to please somebody? Oh, they're asking for volunteer. Oh yeah, I'll help you do that, and I'll help you. And we volunteer to do the same thing on the same day from 3 different places. It's kind of hard to do. So, we need to be careful. And there's just, there are things outside of our skills and abilities that we can't do. So I'm not going to volunteer to help you fix your car you wouldn't want me to, because I know absolutely nothing. Contemporary tried to teach me a few things, and I probably could change the oil if I had to. I don't want all that grease and all over my hands, I'll get somebody else that is more skillful than I am to do that, So, we just need to be careful about making promises in order to just please somebody else. We're doing it just to please somebody else. We don't need to overbook ourselves and completely kill ourselves just to please somebody else. We need to please God. We need to try our best to please God. He's the one that we need to please. Now, my problem is, I worry about overbooking myself trying to please God. I mean, I love this kind of stuff, and I love this, but I have to be careful because I have to read and study, so I have to give myself, I can't do back to back to back because I got to read and study and know what I'm talking about, so I need a few days, and sometimes I do back to back, but it's because I've had plenty of, like, right now when I'm home from work, I don't have to work, I've got plenty of time, I can study all day if I want to. And my house can testify to the fact that I've been doing that. But I've enjoyed my time off this time, and I have not done, I've not done a whole lot, but that's okay. I've learned to live with the dirt. I used to, I was crazy clean. I mean, stupidity is what it was. And I probably cleaned things that didn't even need to be cleaned. But I don't do that anymore. When I clean something now, it really needs to be cleaned. Okay, on page 146 says, let your words be few. Oh my, if we could only listen to that. Don't be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. God is in heaven and you are on earth, so let your words be few. That's Ecclesiastes. Let your words be few. That's good advice. The fewer words we speak, the less chance we have of succumbing to the trap of people pleasing. With dazzling decorations we will later wish we could take back. We need to be careful. Letting our words be few and avoid the people pleasing snare. A lot of times, if we just, a lot of times we need to wait, think, and ask God about it mainly before we volunteer to do anything. We need to make sure that God's in it. It says, do not answer right away. That's another good one. If someone asks you to take on a responsibility or ask your opinion about something you aren't certain of, simply do not answer right away. Kindly tell them that you need time to think about it and to pray about it. And that is very solid, sound advice. We don't need to jump in, get in over our head, and take on responsibility that we don't have the time or the energy or the skills to perform. So we have to, we need to think about what we promised to do, and is our choice based on pleasing God rather than pleasing people. And sometimes in order to please people, please God, you have to displease people, because a lot of times when you tell people no, it doesn't make them happy. But a lot of times when you know God's not in it, God don't want you, God might even be in it, but God don't want you involved in it, and you need to stay out of it. And there's been places where God told me, don't go, don't accept that, don't do that. So I'm glad I listened to God, because when you don't, well, can you get, I've been in a few places a few times that I knew God was in it, and I regretted it. So we need to make sure that God is in it rather than pleasing people. Number 4, she says, keep God at the center of your plans. We need to make sure that we should stop short of boasting about what we're going to do. And at the very bottom of page 147, this is what the Apostle James had to say about it. He says, now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, we'll spend a year there, and we'll carry on business and make money. Why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a while and then vanishes. And instead you ought to say, if it's God's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. You know, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And like he tells us here, we may be gone tomorrow. You know, here today and gone tomorrow. We need to say, it's God's will and I'm still alive and everything's still good. I'll do my best to help out. You know, I like to be of service. I like to be of help. So, she says, people in the world make plans according to what they feel is best for them. What will bring the most financial gain, or what will bring them notoriety and success. God invites us to make our plans according to what will be in line with his desires for us and what will bring glory to him and not to ourselves. A lot of times we do things to make ourselves look good. And God says, you do what you do to make me look good. Lift him up. Let him be glorified. Let him be the one. Because, listen, I know that I have, within myself, I can do nothing. Without God's help, without his strength, without his anointing, there is nothing we can do. We have to depend on God. Know when to eat your words and admit your faults. Anybody ever have to eat their words? Anybody, we call it eating crow. Anybody eat crow? Here's what Proverbs, this is what old Solomon says in Proverbs at the bottom of page 148. My son, if you have put up security for thy neighbor, if thou hast shaken hands in a pledge for a stranger, if you have been trapped by what you said, ensnared by the words of your mouth, in other words, you jump in and say something, oh, y'all do this or I'll do this, be careful what you're liable to get snared and trapped up in something. He said, so do this, my son, to free yourself. Since you have fallen into your neighbor's hands, go to the point of exhaustion and give your neighbor no rest, allow no sleep to your eyes and no slumber to your eyelids. Free yourself like a gazelle from the hands of the hunter and like a bird from the snare of the fowler. You know, sometimes, like, for instance, God tells us not to sign, like not to put our name or sign our name to something, like if somebody wants to buy a car or sign for somebody's, for a house or something. Second, you know, to sign for them, to be accountable if they can't meet their bills or if they can't. And he says, you need to be careful because you don't know what's going to happen. This man, he might have a good job and he might be very willing to make all of it. But what happens if he doesn't? Do you have the resources to take care of it if he doesn't? That's what God said. Be careful. Make sure. And just tell somebody, look, you know, if we have money and we can loan it, that's fine. But we don't need to obligate ourselves for something we can't pay for or something. I mean, you know, don't go out and buy a $100,000 home when you got $20,000 in the bank. I mean, you know, we don't overextend, especially for somebody else, even for your kids or your, we had somebody one time that wanted us to co-sign for a loan. Well, I told him, I said, listen, if God plainly tells us in his word we can't do it. I said, I know you and I trust you and I believe you would. I said, but circumstances and things can happen and I'm not gonna jeopardize my security, you know, for them. It's just, God just says don't do that. He doesn't want us to work hard and then somebody just go behind us and take everything we've got. So anyway, we need to be careful. We can get trapped by our words, and we need to deal with the situation quickly. He tells us don't let any sleep come to our eyes. Don't, you know, go back. If you do that, you need to just go back and explain to them, look, I've studied my finances and I don't think I can do this. And, you know, he said, and don't let it linger. Don't let it go on. Take care of it right now. When you realize that you cannot do something, you need to let that person know. Don't just drag it out or don't just ignore it and have them think you're going to when you can't. He said, you go back and make it right. And don't waste no time making it right. Having to eat our words. We need to be really careful. I got to tell this one on myself. One time, me and one of our principals were having a real disagreement about a situation that had come up. And I was trying so hard to convince him that I was right. I just knew I was right. And there was a little book laying on his desk. I knew I was right. And I was trying so hard to convince him that I was right. I picked that little book up and I said, if I'm wrong, I will eat this book. I mean, that's how sure I was. I was right. Well, a few days after that, he come in and set a bottle of ketchup on my desk. Said, this will make that little book you have to eat taste a lot better. I was wrong, girl. I was so sure, you know, with my big mouth. He didn't really make me eat the book. You know, I mean, we could have said, you know, if that doesn't happen, I'll do something crazy and then have to do it, you know. But I thankfully didn't have to eat that. We need to be careful. You know, I didn't know all the circumstances and I didn't know all the evidence behind what I was acting on what I thought I knew. But I didn't know the whole situation. So that's where we have to be careful. We have to know that we know what we're talking about when we open our big mouth. Okay? Speaking the truth in love. So, you know, we talked some about that. What does it mean? I think it means two things. We need to tell the truth, but we also need, we also have to realize that kindness matters. We can tell the truth in love. We can be kind with it. We don't, you know, we don't have to just, one thing we have to be careful is that we don't put ourselves in the attack mode. Because if you go at people, they're going to put up a defense, and then everything you say after that's lost on deaf ears because they got their defense up and they're not listening to anything you have to say. So don't go at people attacking them. We can speak the truth in love without attacking people. How many times have we withheld the truth simply because we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings? Well, that's not good either, because in the long run, we're just making the situation worse. Just like she talked about the cheerleading. If she had told her the truth, that poor girl might have been saved the embarrassment of being out there and, you know, teenagers are kind of fragile anyway, okay? We're quickly run out of time here, so we read Psalms 15 already, okay? Do we want to go to heaven? Do we want to be right in the sight of God? Then this is what we have to do. We either have to keep it shut or tell the truth in love. That's the bottom line of all of this. We don't gossip. We don't talk about somebody in order to hurt them or to separate them from, when I think about gossip and the tales, you know, I've known a situation in the past where some girls got together at school and told lies on a teacher, and he had to retire, well, not retire, he had to resign his position and leave. And it was lies, it was all lies. That's sad that people can do that, but we can. But think of the good, just think of the good that we can perform with our time. Good that we can do, the love that we can promote, the unity and the peace. Sometimes just a kind word is what somebody's needing to hear. Just to know that somebody respects them and cares about them, and they honor them as a person. And a lot of times we don't do that to people in our lives that we really love and appreciate. I think a lot of times in our church we just take each other for granted. We just expect them to be there and do their job, and we just need to let them know how much we appreciate what they do, and how much, you know, I think about, you know, the singers and the ministers, and just how much we love them and appreciate them. How many times have we told them how much we appreciate them and what they do, and that they stand on the word of God and proclaim the truth, you know? And we got some good ministers in this area that stand on the word of God and proclaim the truth, and I'm thankful for that. I am so thankful, because we don't get a lot of that in our big churches today, girls. They quit trying to please God and they're trying to please man. They want a big crowd, they want big ties, they want big money, you know, they want fame and fortune, they want, you know, their name lifted up. Alrighty, you got just a few minutes here. I'm gonna open the floor